Carlos, I appreciate it. Actually the man of the 3 hours because we're going to be here for a little while. Thank you for the introduction. I appreciate it so much. For those of you who don't know my history, I won't bore y'all with getting there. But now that Tanya and I have always wanted to open a school up. Never did because we felt there'd be a conflict of interest of having a school with some past events. Well, we no longer have those conflicts of interest, so we said, hey, how could we have some fun, with this and actually help other contractors? Spray Wash Academy was born out of that, and it was a natural fit with Paul doing these regional events, and he said, well, what's the first thing we want to do? And we said safety training, a safety certification. We'll be offering a lot of different certifications throughout the year, and I want to go ahead and just talk about these certifications because there's always, a big discussion about this. Some people say, certifications are crap, they don't matter, and some people say, I love my certifications. I don't think anybody's ever going to say you've got to be certified, and it's a tool that you can use yourself if you choose to use it, but nobody's telling you have to use it at all. Whenever it comes to safety certification, I think it's just a great idea to learn about safety. And just because you get certified, it doesn't mean you're an expert in that field and your learning is over at this point, because we should never stop learning. In fact, some of the new guys, younger guys, actually have a little bit of an advantage over some of the old guys in the business, because the old guys get stuck in their ways, and this is the way we've always done it, where the new guys are a little bit more open to new things coming about. So, never get stuck in that rut if you know everything. Always be learning. I think it's such an important thing to do. But throughout the year, we'll be doing with Power Wash Store, a fleet washing. We'll be doing a plant and property certification. Plant and property protection certification, that's a mouthful. Window cleaning certification. So we're really going to have a lot of fun with this. We hope you use these tools to your advantage. And please make sure y'all thank Paul, because Paul is paying our freight for this class on here. So he said, it's important enough. We want all the attendees here. Ray, please teach safety on this. For those of you who don't know Spray Wash Exterior Cleaning, Tanya and I are based in Tallahassee, Florida. I have 3 full-time service vehicles and then a spare backup. We had a hood cleaning business. We sold it last year. Thank you, Jesus. Woo! We're kind of a victim of our own success right there. We're like, we're going to kind of get in here to hood cleaning and just take up a little spare time. And next thing you know, we were 6-figure hood company, and that just took on a life of its own. So real happy to do that. I am at a level where I am so happy and blessed. I'm not really looking to expand. I like running about 2.5 trucks a day out there, or 2 trucks and a night crew. We do a lot of commercial. We do residential every day as well, but we really specialize in large-scale commercial. It's made us, and part of the reason we got into the large-scale commercial was because I'm in Florida, and I quickly found out that in Florida, and we can talk about selling our service and how important it is and to get training, but we still are dealing with the $49, $59 guys here. The joke for those guys who aren't in Florida, there's a joke about whenever you move to this state, at the border they stop you and they give you either a real estate license or a pressure washer. It's true, but we started getting into and couple of reasons we specialized in commercial. One, whenever Tanya, I was able to talk her into coming to work with us at Spray Wash. I didn't want her out knocking on customers' doors, in residential neighborhoods for a safety issue. And then second, to avoid that, the lowballing hack mentality, I said, let's wash things that the average guy with a pressure washer would look at it and go, I don't know how to do this. So we kind of morphed our business into going after the stranger, weirder, a little bit more difficult projects to do that. And one of the things that we kept hearing from managers was safety. So you'll see this, when we talk about safety, we're really breaking this into several different levels of safety here, because it's not just your safety as far as, you know, keeping yourself safe. Safety takes on a lot of different aspects, and there we go. Safety takes on a lot of different aspects. It's not just about your own personal safety. You know, it's talking about public safety. It's talking about property protection. It's talking about your employee safety, and most importantly, it's talking about your safety, because if you're a single owner operator or a guy who's behind the wand every day, like my business could take the hit a little bit better. You know, if something should happen to me, because I've got Tanya, I've got crews, I've got project managers, some days I wonder why I'm actually there. But for a single owner operator, if you get hurt, there goes your business. You don't have a way to earn. So it's so important to do that. And we found that with the public protection, we've really gotten a lot more business, because it's something that property managers have dealt with. It's really easy to sell good pressure washing, power washing services if a property manager has dealt with a bad power washer before. If they've made out, you know, some insurance claims, or bought a lot of new clothes, or you know, bleach spots everywhere, property damage, it's a lot easier to sell the higher price services. Something you'll hear me, if you spend any time around me much at all, you'll see, you know, me mention online and in our classes, we all sling the same bleach. It's your choice whether you want to do it for $20 an hour or $200 an hour. I choose $200 an hour. What we're going to talk about in this class today, I just want to give us a good basic functional understanding of roofs, ladders, lifts, OSHA requirements, job site and public safety. We're going to be technical to start with on the OSHA part of it, but then I really want to open up the floor and make this us ability to share some ideas on here, because one of the magic things about these events is talking to other contractors and what they do. You can pick up some ideas on that, and it's a huge help to everybody. Every time I come to one of these events, I learn something. But you know, you can't talk about safety without talking about OSHA. So we're going to start off here with OSHA. OSHA is the 800-pound gorilla in the room. And when I say the 800-pound gorilla, I mean it is the 800-pound gorilla. It's not the cute little chimpanzee that's riding the bicycle around. It's not the chill orangutan that looks like you go sit on the couch with him. It's a big, ugly silverback gorilla that will rip your arms off and beat you to death with your own appendages. Who has to follow OSHA? Well, if you're an owner-operator without an employee, technically you don't have to follow OSHA. You tell you have one single employee that's a true employee, you've got to follow OSHA. We want to talk about some of these myths and some of these misconceptions about it. But OSHA stands for the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. It started in 1970 as a place to try to make our job sites, you know, more safe. If I'm a single owner operator, or if I have a partnership where I'm subcontracting stuff out and truly subcontracting, then I might be avoiding the OSHA rules. I might not have to go and adhere to all of the OSHA stuff. But you can't sit here and say I'm subcontracting out and not really subcontract out, because that's where you're going to run into a big problem. You know, we run into this with 1099s, you know, with taxes and payroll on that. Oh no, they're subs, we're not withholding on there. It's a pretty solid definition of what a true subcontractor is. You know, they're not using your tools. They are, you know, you're not telling them when to show up. They're doing it at their own schedule on there. So it's something that we all flaunt with. And I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong. This is not a judgmental thing. This is just us talking about how to keep ourselves safe. If you have an employee, you have to follow these guidelines. Companies of less than 10 employees have a little bit different reporting reporting guidelines. If you're 10 or more, you've actually got some reports and some safety stuff you have to fill out with OSHA. Smaller companies like mine, we're exempt from that. A lot of people wind up confusing OSHA with workers' comp exemption, and there's some overlap, but there's not overlap. But you need to understand, you know, the exemption for workers' comp. Well, if I have less than 4 people working for me, I'm exempt. No, you're exempt from workers' comp if you have less than 4 people working for you. But if you have just 1 employee, you are not exempt from workers' comp. Or I'm sorry, you're not exempt from OSHA. Always make sure, you know, what rules, you can't pick and choose what rules to follow. And find out the misconceptions on there. According to the OSHA website, the top 10 most frequently cited construction violations. Duty to have fall protection are scaffolding, ladders, fall protection training, eye and face protection, general health and safety, head protection, aerial lifts, fall protection systems, criteria, and practices, and excavations. So whenever I go and count this up on a large-scale type project where a lift is involved, 8 of those 10 are things that I do every day. 8 of those 10 are things that you might be doing every day that OSHA's out there citing people on. And if you notice that 3 of those are directly related, 4 of those really, if you count in aerial lifts, are directly related to fall protection. OSHA takes fall protection very, very serious. Probably more serious than any other of their rules that they have. But it's not the only thing we're worried about with OSHA either. We're going to be talking about OSHA, some of the things that they want to see that you have to concern yourself with. Fall protection, eyes, hands, your feet, your chemical splash, your head protection, which is a hard hat, safe workspace, your ladders. Are your ladders functional? We'll get into a whole section on ladders today. SDS sheets and training. Training is so important according to OSHA. I was really surprised about the hard hats, the head protection on there. OSHA says, I mean, if you're working under a lift or if you have people working above you, you're supposed to have a hard hat. You need to have a hard hat out there. And you don't think, whenever we're pressure washing, why do I need a hard hat? Well, don't ask why. OSHA tells you you're supposed to have a hard hat on there. And it is something they will bust your tail on. So anytime, we have a lift and people are working underneath it, it's my company policy. Put the hard hat on. The hard hat, stays on, unless you're guarding a door for traffic. But I want to see hard hat on you, and I want to see you actually wearing a harness on the job site. And we'll get into why I want them to wear the harnesses on the job site in a bit. So all of these things are areas that we have to be concerned about as employers and on our job site. Had a great conversation with an OSHA regional director a couple weeks ago. Really opened my eyes on stuff. I'm going to talk about that because I just sat down at my desk and I think Marguerite, my office manager, was like, it looks like you just saw a ghost. And I was like, well, I think I just saw my company flash before my eyes after getting off this, and realized that even me, I'm very non-compliant with OSHA in a lot of respects. And I don't know if any of us can ever truly be compliant with OSHA. And we addressed that in the phone call as well. But we need to be as compliant as possible. We need to make our job sites look safe. Our job sites need to be safe. We need to have a basic understanding of that. And when we talk about a basic understanding, let's also discuss, what this class today, I mean, we're walking out with a safety certification. Does this mean you have a full understanding of the OSHA rules? No, you don't. OSHA has a basic certification course for their basic stuff is called OSHA 10. That's 10 classroom or 10 online hours. You have an OSHA 30 class. That's, as you guessed, probably 30 classroom or online things. And again, those are just basic introduction to OSHA rules and regulations. That's not covering every one. Whenever you get into their website and start looking around, there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of pages of regulations that we need to look at for OSHA. And it's very tough to understand them all. It really is. See myself tripping over there, face planting in a safety meeting. What does OSHA say? Over 6 foot off a work surface, you should have fall protection on. If you're an employee, if you're an owner, you should have fall protection on. Not if you, but they don't have an ability to regulate you on that. But if you have an employee, if one of your employees is working over 6 foot, they need to have fall protection on. Yes, sir.
If you're in the manufacturing area, there's a subsection in there, and it goes if you get in the government jobs, that in the manufacturing, it has to be fall protection of 4 feet.
Right. 4 foot. So at manufacturing sector, 4 foot.
It'll really hold it.
Yeah, and that's incredible. You know, I mean, it's absolutely incredible.
What's the question, right?
He said on the main, there's a subset on the manufacturing rules, and this is one of the things that OSHA has. You've got different sections. You've got construction section. You've got manufacturing. You've got general industry. But it says 4 foot for manufacturing. That's tough. I mean, 4 foot. That was actually my first building rappel that I did. It was 16 stories. Go big or go home, and that was scary. I literally was on the edge of this thing, and I'm looking at my employee, and I said, "Christian, pull my fingers up." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, I can't. I said, I know I'm sitting in the harness. My ropes are tight, but I cannot let go. I've got to. And he said, "Boss, I can't do that." I'm like, "Do it. Dang it, do it now." So he like pried my fingers up, and I'm like, okay. And I'm like, "Okay, do the other hand." He's like, and I'm here today, so it worked out real well. But my body would not let me actually, let go. Now I'll jump over the side of anything. Okay, low slope roofs. I want to give y'all this, it's a good bad on here, but there is a low slope roof, actually an official statement on there in the construction industry. Are we construction? Maybe, depending on the OSHA instructor that goes out and inspects you. And this is one of their official responses, because if you have a question, you submit it to OSHA and they will give you an official response on a question. And then they publish their response on their website, so it's searchable. You can really learn a lot by going in and searching the website and seeing their responses on stuff, because they will interpret and clarify their rules for you. If you ever get inspected by an OSHA inspector with thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of regulations, even your inspectors don't know every regulation that's out there. Showing that you're familiar with some of them will help you along the ways, because they look at it as, well, this guy is trying and he has familiarized himself with this. Anyway, the low slope roofs. What that's saying, you can do a guardrail system, a safety net system, personal fall arrest system, or a combination of warning line system and guardrail system, warning line system and safety net system, or warning line system and personal fall arrest, or warning line and safety monitoring may be used on low slope roofs. And here's the part that's important for us. On Roofs 50 foot or less in width, employers may use only a safety monitoring system. Employers do not have to prove that any options are infeasible in order to use other options. So a low slope roof, which they considered 412 or less than 50 foot, you can have a safety monitor on there. And a safety monitor's sole job is to watch the edge of the roof, watch the employee. But if you're doing that, the inspectors that I've spoken to said those safety monitors better, by God, be safety monitors. And not doing something else and then try to use the, oh, that's my safety monitor excuse whenever you pull up. Oh yeah, well, he's my safety monitor. Well, why don't I see him on a surface cleaner down here? He's not a very effective safety monitor if he's on the ground. A safety monitor has to be on the same plane, the same work surface as the laborer up there. So they would have to be on the roof with them. You can't be a safety monitor from the ground or even on a higher part of the roof. The personal fall arrest, and I'm not real big, I mean, I'm much bigger on just talking instead of reading stuff, but I want to actually go over the next couple of pages in a lot of detail. So the whole class isn't going to be just me reading, but it's important enough on this for us to read it to get a good understanding of this. But this section, the 29 CFR 1926.502 subsection D, that won't be on the test, but it talks about, you know, the minimum requirements of these personal fall arrest systems. It's got to be consist of an anchorage, connectors, and a body harness. It also has to include a lanyard, deceleration device, lifeline, or suitable combination of these. So obviously just wearing a harness isn't good enough. You have to be connected to something on that harness for it to be effective. Body belts are not acceptable for what we do for fall protection. And if anybody has the body belt, like a climbing belt that's not a full body harness, just that goes around your legs and belt and waist, those are not acceptable. It has to limit the maximum arresting force on a worker to 1,800 pounds when used with a body harness. And meaning, you know, whenever your sudden stop is 1,800 pounds of force, can't be more than that. So that's part of the way they calculate, you know, these load ratings and the force on there. It's why your lanyard has to be the size that it has to be, so that you're not building up more kinetic energy, you know, in falling. Because it's not the fall that kills you; it's the sudden stop at the end of any fall. Be rigged so you cannot fall more than 6 feet or contact any lower level. Which, if you think about it, if you're working on a real chopped up roof and it's got something a 4 foot, you know, a secondary roof at 4 foot. I mean, we see this all the time on residential houses, where, you know, you've got the garage, the peak of the garage, and then we're working on the roof right above the garage that's only about 3 foot above that, you know, on a second story house. Technically, you're going to have a shorter lanyard or a tie off a little shorter, so you can't fall off and hit the roof that's only 4 foot below you. That is technically a violation. Like I said, it's very, very hard for us to ever truly follow the letter of law of OSHA because of little things like this, because they don't necessarily take into account what we do on a daily basis. Have sufficient strength to withstand twice the potential impact energy of a worker free falling to a distance of 6 feet or free fall distance permitted by the system, whichever is less. I don't even know how to calculate things like this. We will see stuff later on, though. A good rule of thumb is 5,000 pounds. They make several references to 5,000 pounds should be your load limit on things. And each anchor point should be able to support 5,000 pounds. Be inspected prior to each use for wear, damage, or other deterioration. Defective components must be removed from service. And again, this is just copied and pasted from the OSHA website. I didn't put any type of my spin on here. Very important on harnesses that you inspect them and that you log your inspections on the harnesses. And this is where, I mean, you start getting into the OSHA and reading the regulations, even on the PPE that we'll be talking about. It opens up a Pandora's box, because you're just like, well, I thought I was doing the good thing by buying my employee the safety harness on here. Well, now I'm violating the regulation of not recording the inspections on the safety harnesses. What do you do? What do you do? You've got to show a good faith effort, though. But you'll notice on a lot of these better safety harnesses, not the $99 in a bucket safety harness, but you know, from like Suit for Safety Anchor, you'll actually see several tags on the inside that'll tuck into something where you can write inspection dates on there in permanent markers. So it keeps you a log actually on the harness itself. Very handy thing to do. You know, if you don't inspect your safety gear, it's really not safety gear. So you need to check over these things each and every time you put it on. And it's not just your harness, it's your lanyards, it's your ropes, it's your anchors, everything that you're using as a fall arrest, you need to inspect it. What's that? Oh yeah, we go into ladders. Oh yeah. Ladders, ladders, ladders. I hate. Does anybody else hate working from ladders? I can't stand it. I hate it when, I mean, to me a good day is whenever a ladder does not come off a truck, you know. And I would much rather I'd climb a 12-12 versus working off a ladder. But I don't know. It's my personal preference. I can't stand it. Anchorages. Anchorages must be independent of any anchorage being used to support or suspend platforms and must be capable of supporting at least 5,000 pounds. That's that 5,000 pound number that I was telling you about. That's also a really good number to remember, because we're going to, this class will be tested for, if you want the certification. We'll give y'all a test at the end. You can turn in at your leisure. That's a number you might see again, that 5,000 pound. You got to support at least twice the weight, twice the expected load impact. And that's why we go to 5,000 pounds, because I mean, you start getting into newtons and force and gravity, and you know, a 200-pound man falling at 5 foot, what kind of force is it going to do? Just use 5,000 pounds. You're safer that way. It has to be independent of platforms or anything else that's tied off to it. So you don't need two guys tied off to the same thing. Next, I think Tuesday or Wednesday, I start a swing stage job in Tallahassee, and we've actually had to go and install separate anchorage points. I can't use the same anchorage point that my swing stage is getting tied to. Totally independent thing. Snap hooks have to be the locking type and designed and used to prevent disengagement from any component. And you think, you know, that's just kind of common sense right there. But your carabiners, and when we talk about the snap hooks, we're talking about a carabiner. I had an experience doing some rope work and go over the side, and it was a precast. It was the District Court of Appeals in Tallahassee. I go over the side, and as I am right here, and it's a multi-step side, as I am going over, I look, and then one of my D-rings was one of the it was not a screw-on, but it was a snap D-ring. I look on there, and it's open. It's literally it's pushing up against the building, and the corner of the building is pushing it in. And if I would have rocked a little bit different way, that whole snap hook could have come out of that, and really caused me a problem. Now, I was rappelling and I had a backup line, and that one wouldn't have been affected, but I would have been hanging there like a piñata and really embarrassed. So snap hooks, that made me realize just how it's you know, your safety system is only as good as your weakest link. So all of your components have to be inspected, and whenever I got on the ground, I literally took every one of those springy, you know, it kind of makes a quarter turn snap hook. Mm-hmm. I threw every one of them away, and now I'll only use the kind that actually screw all the way on there that make a positive locking connection with the screw. And you know, I could see something on one that has the quarter turn that you know, and people say, oh, I don't rappel, you know, it's not a problem with me. But I could literally see where a lanyard could put some pressure, you know, the right way on one of the snap hooks and cause it to come open, or your safety lines could actually, you know, manipulate that a little bit. So just something to think about on there. Use those Ray's advice is use those screw kind that really give a good positive lock on there. You're going to have to connect stuff to your D-rings and your lifelines. Whenever you start getting into your lifelines on a roof, we'll discuss this a little bit more when we get into our actual roofing section. But everything's just got to be in tip-top shape on this. We've got to inspect on our equipment. Continuing on, horizontal lifelines. Now, a horizontal lifeline would be like if we suspended something on a roof from a chimney to an anchor point, or even they could consider it a horizontal lifeline if we had an anchor point on the roof and we're using like a Prusik knot, something you know, holding on when we're going down a rope, you know, that's tied up to a chimney. We've got our harness on and a locking a belay device, you know, and letting a little bit out, washing the roof, letting a little bit out, washing a roof. Those horizontal lifelines that can become vertical lifelines, both devices, those if you've got two ends on that device, you have to, and you're using a rope grab or a rope follow on that device, it has to be capable of locking in both directions. So whenever you let your hand off the spring clasp on there, it doesn't go backwards or forwards on there. Because part of our safety, whenever we tie off to roofs and we're getting you know, our lines on the roofs, we can get a false sense of safety if the equipment we have, if you're not familiar with how to use it, or you install it backwards, or it's there's so many different kinds of safety things, safety gear out there as well. They have these rope follows that will follow your rope down for vertical work, but it may not lock in that position. Well, I want to use this. That's a non-locking rope follow, and I put it on there backwards, or it goes off one end of it. I think I'm going to get stopped by this device, and it just keeps zipping right off the end of the rope. And if anybody has questions about stuff, I'm saying stuff that sounds very foreign to you, feel free to drop me an email through the website, and I'll send you pictures and some research material on how to look up some of this stuff. Windows 101, they were a great source for, and Racenstein, I know they had a lot of good safety devices. Paul, he can get you safety devices as well, but you want to make sure that something's going to stop your rope grab or your rope follow that you're using to put tension on your rope. Because here's the point I'm trying to make about this. If you're trusting your safety gear to stop you from a fall, but you're not using it right, you know, I'm going to lean back in my ropes, I'm going to put some tension on it. Now you can wind up actually hurting yourself where you wouldn't have hurt yourself before if this rope grab isn't grabbing the rope. And I'm going to lean back over here to take some tension off. Well, now I'm on my butt. And even though I'm wearing a harness, it's not grabbing on anything. So make sure your tension devices actually grab the ropes. Yes, sir?
How do you get this training? How do you get your swing stage training?
You know, there's one, actually they're doing it with the ICE convention, Safety Green. They do rope access training. Guy.
Ray, just to answer his question, we use the swing stage through the people that we lease the swing stage through. They do a safety course before you get into the before they set up the swing stage and stuff. They will go through a safety training with you. Our guys did that with them. They will give you a card that certifies if you were trained safety training on the swing stage.
Yeah, mine in Tallahassee next Wednesday. We actually have a walk around meeting with the guys, and all of my guys that will be on that swing stage have to go through that. So, you know, swing stages are great because they really, you know, there's a lot of liability with the swing stages, and they don't just say, yeah, we'll set you one up. They want to make sure you're trained on that. Yes, sir.
Will we be able to get a copy of the presentation?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that we can do many segments during our morning huddle?
Yep.
To remind all of us what.
Yeah, y'all send me the email through the website, and I'll be happy to send y'all a PDF of this.
And the full video will be on YouTube.
Okay, and the video will be on YouTube. Great. Vertical lifelines and lanyards. We see this 5,000 again. 5,000 pounds. Little hint on your vertical lifelines. Whenever you're using your rope grab on there, if that's a device you choose to use, put a knot at the end of your lifeline. Otherwise, you know, you're just walking along. You're focused on washing a roof, and you walk right off the end of your rope, and you're no longer attached. Put a knot at the end of it. Lifelines have to be protected against being cut or abraded. Throw a carpet square down. Some of the rope companies, they'll actually sell, you know, nylon and Velcro sleeves that go over your ropes. Part of my conversation that I had with my OSHA field director, I said, okay, misconception I hear all the time is I can tie off if I'm on the bumper, but the keys are in my pocket. I can tie off, you know, to a bumper of a truck. And he said, yeah, I would be okay with that. He said another inspector might not be okay with that. We would like to not see you do that, because what we're going to start looking at is the angle of the ropes. And, you know, if you're tied off to a bumper here, roof's up here, is that roof hitting that leading edge of the shingles right there, or the tile? And are we abrading that rope? Have you made any type of concession for keeping those ropes from breaking? So not the best, you know, place to tie off to. It works in a pinch, but I know somebody on the Facebook forum on somebody had said, well, I checked with the OSHA and they said, no, that's not acceptable. It's a prime, you know, I checked with them and they said it would be acceptable. Each inspector is going to be a little bit different out there. Each inspector is going to be different and have different interpretations of the rules. Like,
what about vortex spikes? Like the vortex, they're about this long and they spike and you can drill them straight down into the ground.
Like an auger?
Yeah, like an auger, because we've used those. I feel like we put one on each side, especially with tile roofs.
Right.
A lot of times in Florida, we've got no place to put an anchor on the top, and you don't want to be sliding someone's shingles or the tiles around to try to get.
Or take the hammer and bust up the cap. And,
we'll take the auger, those. Put your dog to it, but it'll hold up to. Again, it says 5,000 pounds of force. We'll put one on each side of the house, and then we can hook into that quickly and move to the opposite side of the house. Yep. Is that
so run? I mean, I think you'd have to demonstrate that it's capable of 5,000 pounds.
Yeah.
You know, I mean.
I'm not going to go run and jump off the roof and prove it, but I feel pretty confident.
But yeah, that's their rule. I mean, that's their rule. 5,000 pounds. I mean. And again, this is the hard call, because I'd hate to sit here and tell you that oh yeah, it's fine, and then all of a sudden you get the OSHA fine on there. All I can really do is say this is what you have to look at, and that's one of the things that they would say. You know, and again, because you're lower, they'd want to see some protection there along the leading edge of the shingles and stuff. Some of those nylon rope wraps or just a carpet remnant or anything to help keep it from getting abraded. And I think if you did that, your typical inspector would say, you're doing a good job, yes, because is he going to break out a scale and a Mack truck and try to pull it out? Probably not. But I tell you what it does say, those roof anchors, not the roof anchors, but the downpipe anchors that some folks have sold in the past on there, you drop it into a drain pipe. For anybody that's not familiar with this, you are literally first off, you're playing for your life, you're playing with your life. I mean, it's better than nothing, it would probably just decelerate your fall a little bit, but OSHA is just going to whip out that ticket book and start writing when they see that. Ropes and straps, webbing used in lanyards, lifelines, and string components must be made of synthetic fibers. Now that's different from a ropes access type course, but anything that's part of your fall protection system as far as your harness, your lanyard, that cannot be cotton. That has to be a nylon or some other type of synthetic fabric that hopefully, it's part of the inspection process. Cotton wears out, grabs out. The synthetics have a longer lifespan.
Question on the
Yes, sir.
There are no expiration dates on any of these.
Oh, absolutely there are. Yeah, on harnesses.
Okay.
Yeah, there are. In fact, whenever I first started, and I was so just broke whenever I started spray wash, and I went on to eBay to get my harnesses because the nice harnesses were $150 to $300 in the stores, and you could buy used harnesses for $24 or so, $20, used small blood stain. But getting them, I was like, you start reading the documentation and the labels on there. It was like, oh crap, this thing expired 3 years ago. Is it better than nothing? Yeah, it was. I think the bigger the company, the more they're going to hold your feet to the fire on that. But they really should be in date on there. In so much of our safety stuff, when we're talking about the safety, we see a ladder that's rated for 300 pounds. ANSI, and this is not saying, hey, press the envelope on all of these ratings that you see, but whenever ANSI, which is what the American National Standards Institute, American National Standards Institute, they're the ones that they certify things or make requirements. They work actually in conjunction with OSHA, but they'll say, okay, this pair of glasses is good for this type of safety and can withstand this much force. But typically speaking, whenever we see ratings on stuff, they've sandbagged that rating a little bit. If something's rated for 3,000, and I don't know the actual industry number, but it's probably more like a 400-pound ladder. You still shouldn't be using it over its rating, but it's not, if it's a 300-pound ladder and you're a 300-pound guy, you're still good on that. You're still good. According to OSHA, and this is one of the areas on OSHA that they cannot stress enough. It's not good enough to just give your guys equipment that's in good shape or provide it to them. It's training. And you had mentioned the toolbox talks, with your guys. So important to have constant training with your employees, if you have employees. This is a sample right here, and I'll read some of it for you. This is a sheet from an OSHA-approved vendor. Failure to properly inspect, set up, or use ladder can cause death. It's telling them where to inspect the ladder at. No loose, broken, missing parts. Non-skid feet. No wet or slippery treads on there. Talks about ladder setup. So you would want to take sheets like this and actually talk to your employees about setting the ladder up, how to inspect the ladder. Train them on their PPE as well. OSHA wants to know that you have training places and training programs in place for everything. It's not just good enough to supply the stuff. Am I depressing the crap out of y'all yet with this? I represent that OSHA 10, OSHA 30. Those are classes you can look for online that give some OSHA training. PPE training. Again, blew my mind whenever we started looking at this, the formality of it. Part of the questions that OSHA lists on their website are this right here. We have to tell, if those not familiar, PPE is personal protective equipment. OSHA wants you to talk to your employees about when PPE is necessary, what PPE is necessary, how to wear it, what are the limitations of the PPE, and the care, maintenance, and disposal of the PPE. They want you to talk to your employees about having a plan for not using old stuff. What PPE is required, it depends on the job. Safety data sheets. Everybody got them? Keep them. That's something that they care about a lot. They also care that your employees have access to this as well. That's a citable offense if an inspector looks at your employee and he says, "Hey, where's the SDS safety data sheets on these chemicals? Where are they?" "I don't know. Boss never gave them to me. I don't know where they are." "Have you ever asked for them?" "No, but you don't know where they are?" "No." They can actually fine you for that. You need to have these in your truck in a binder. And it's not just OSHA that cares about this, it's DOT that cares about it. County code inspectors can care about them. EPA can care about them. Every one of our trucks, we have a blue folder. They get put in sheet protectors and put in there and labeled for which truck it goes to. All of the and we keep all of our agent clean stuff. We keep EBC on there, any of the acids that we have. I've got one for bleach, 10.5% bleach. Anything that we commonly use on there. Part of my conversation with my OSHA inspector that I talked to, and this wasn't at all a confrontational discussion that I had with this gentleman. It was quite nice. But I said, if I'm reading this law right, if I'm reading this rule correctly, I'm not going to call it a law, if I'm reading this rule correctly, I said, if I've got a bottle of Windex in my truck, I need a SDS on that. And he said, yes, you do.
Yeah, some oil.
Yep. If it's basically if it's a liquid, not have to be a liquid, it can be a powder. If it's anything you use in your daily basis that you're carrying around, you need to have a safety data sheet on it. Now, are they going to bust you for Windex? Probably not. But could they bust you for Windex? Yes, they could. Yes, sir.
Also bust if the container isn't marked, what's in the solutions in there.
That's right. That's right. And that, that's something that we're guilty of all the time. I'm going to use this, one of my vendors, those great square totes, those 5-6 gallon square totes that a lot of us use for X jetting or downstreaming or just great storage totes. How many times we rip the labels off of that and we don't have it listed as to what's on there? It should be listed if it's on there. Yes, sir.
In general, and a lot of people probably know it, one thing about you said employees being asked, do you know where they're at? Have you been trained on? And they say no. You get fined for it. It's a good idea to have a backup, that you have a sign-off sheet that everybody's been trained. So
right. Well, and that's we talk about the training, and it's a great point. Whenever we have our safety meetings, your employees should sign off on this, so you can first off you can demonstrate that you have done your part on the training on there, and then additionally, an employee is not going to say, well, I've never been trained on this, to an inspector and get you further in trouble on this. because you can say, no, here's proof that I've trained them on this. There's a lot of, and you'll see on these, and whenever I email it to you, or you can write it down, lots of little resource places you can go to for a fee that will tell you, here's a training plan, here's a sign-off sheet, here's, how you do this. There was something on this one I thought of, and it went away. OSHA rules apply. Now, here, yes, sir. And who is that? New Pig? Okay. NEWPIG?
Yes.
Okay. Newpig.com? All right. One of my, we talked earlier, alluded to this, we had manufacturing sector, construction sector. OSHA has different sectors that have different regulations. On the inspector that I spoke with, I said, am I construction? Sometimes you think, okay, our cleaning, our roofs, are we construction? He said, no. The rule is construction on a roof is the taking off or adding to materials of that. So we're not considered construction. If you're adding what? If you're putting an anchor on, I don't know. Are you considered, again, it's one of those, we'll see a couple of more little dualities that OSHA has on the regulations. Not being considered construction is again kind of a good bad for us, because the good part is construction can be a little tougher on some of their regulations because of the threat of injury. The bad part on there is it doesn't mean we're exempt from all of the other general industry requirements of OSHA. And this is part of what we don't actually think about on there. Okay, I got my fall protection on, but what does OSHA say about chemical usage? What does OSHA say about a safe workplace? Do we have trip hazards around our truck? Because our workplace, we've got multiple workplaces. We've got our shops, our truck is a workplace, and the job site that we're on is a workplace. So we're tasked with the duty of making our job site safe as well. You pull off hoses out there on, and the old guys know this. We hate knots and hoses. We hate, big pretzels of stuff, and it makes us less efficient. But some of the newer guys out here, you pull off your hoses off the reel, and it winds up in a wad down there at the low part of it. Technically, you've got a violation right there because it's a trip hazard. Or you forget to lock it in, and that hose keeps working its way off the reel. How many times we spray in the backside of the house, and 2 inches at a time with that motion going back and forth, and you walk back out, and you've got 200 foot of hose sitting there on the ground on there. You've got a violation there, believe it or not. It's something to think about. It's a trip hazard. We should have first aid kits in our trucks. All of our items that we use should be in good working order. Ladders, any of the equipment, extension cords. Do not put electrical tape on your extension cords. Y'all might see this question again. If an extension cord is nicked, don't go and splice it and put wire nuts on there. Don't put duct tape. Don't put electrical tape. What you have to do is take it out of service, cut it, put a new end on it there. You're not supposed to have spliced electrical wires on tools. You're like, I'm a damn pressure washer. Why do I need crap like this? Because it's part of the OSHA general industry rules on there. So we have to understand OSHA as a whole, not just for the construction industry. That's why I say it's a good bag.
I had an OSHA rep tell me that we have to have an eye wash station.
Eye wash station.
I didn't even think about it
yes,
until we brought it up.
That is, we had this discussion the other day, and I used to carry these in my, and think about this, you've got eye wash station on your truck, and you used to be able to get them at Walgreens, and it would be a cup, with saline on there, so you can, you know, put it on, you squeeze it up, some gets in the cup, and you can wash your eye with it. I used to have those in my kits. I haven't checked the date on those. I don't know if that would be good enough or not.
I think they expire every, like, once a year in the bag.
But it's something to think about. I mean, this is where, if you can take an OSHA 10 or an OSHA 30 online, do it. I mean, $89 to $150, it's going to help get, it may wind up saving you out of a little bit of a problem. You know, understand that the OSHA, on January 2nd, the OSHA fines went up, and OSHA has different levels of fines. Hold on one sec. Okay, the OSHA fine, the penalty for a serious OSHA violation. As of 2018, a serious violation is what they consider that could cause death or bodily injury on there. $12,934. For not wearing a harness on a roof, that could be a $12,934 fine. I don't do a lot of $12,000 roofs. So that's going to be a money-losing proposition for me right there, you know. And this is the kind of thing, and one of the reasons that we talk about this is these fines are severe enough that it can put us out of business. I mean, this is it's not a speeding ticket. I mean, these are fines that can actually really, really mess our lives up. So that's why we want to familiarize ourselves with this. You know, beg for mercy, have a clean job site. This is really important, and we'll talk about this some more in a minute. Contrary to popular belief, here's part of the good news: OSHA isn't everywhere at all times, but they can be anywhere at any time. Florida only has 3 OSHA offices, so it's not like they're just running around. You know, the bad news is one's here in Tampa, Jacksonville, and then Miami. If you're working around a major construction site, really watch your P's and Q's, because OSHA inspectors will be looking at that construction site. Some of y'all saw the hospital that I was working on last weekend, had some photos of that online. They're doing a massive surgery tower addition on there. And not that we wouldn't be safe anyway, but I had my meeting before with the guys, and I said, look, it would not surprise me at all to have an OSHA inspector walk up here. I said, you know, be on it, because there are going to be OSHA inspectors at that job site. My project manager called me 3 years ago now. Holy crap, Ray, holy crap, OSHA just came here. And I was like, we just got inspected. He said, not officially. We're doing a Holiday Inn. And I wasn't at the job site, but I was so proud of my guys, because I knew they were following my directions. It was a 6-story Holiday Inn, the oblong one. Everybody's seen this footprint of a Holiday Inn before. My rules for spray wash are, you know, you get there, your harnesses go on as soon as you get to the job site. If they're not on, then they're laid on the railing of the lift. Safety cones, we are going to cone off this lift. It's not going to be in a public, you know, walk-through area. We're going to tape down our hoses if we have to go in front of a door. We're going to keep our job site nice and clean on here. Well, these OSHA inspectors were staying at that hotel. And he looked at my guy and he says, you know what? You guys are really on point, and I appreciate that. And I was just thinking, wow, you know, they listened to me, thank God. Because, you know, if you'd have gone out there and made it a messy construction site, we would have been officially inspected right then. I mean, it's like, hell, it's only going to take me about 10 minutes to knock out several $1,000s in fines before I actually go to my job. And then the funny part is he left my guys with this thought. He's like, but y'all remember that we are staying here at this hotel for a few days, and we'll be back about 4 o'clock, so I hope you're still on point when we get back. I'm like, that's just kind of unfair. I mean, it's like he has a bad day or he's on a quota assist. I mean, he's like, well, I know one guy didn't check, so my guy's knocked off at 3:30 that day. Yeah, y'all take a long lunch. My call with OSHA. And as I alluded to it, I sat and called one of the deputy directors. I'm not leaving his name out because I told him I would not quote him. It was a very cordial call. We were laughing, cutting up. I was like, you have a hard time finding anybody to work on your house, don't you? And he's like, yeah, I don't tell him what I do. He was out of the Jacksonville office, and his words to me were, Ray, if I wanted to make my life's mission just, if I wanted an easy place to write fines, all I'd have to do is follow around pressure washers. He said, we want you guys to be safe. We want compliance with our rules. He said, but pressure washers never follow our rules. He goes, and I see, working off the lifts all the time, no hard hats on. I see that constantly. He's like, I watched you guys out there spraying water with no PPE on. And he goes, and flip-flops are not PPE. He said sunglasses, Oakley sunglasses are not PPE. Shorts are not appropriate PPE. And I was like, so you expect me to dress? And I've had to do this on some large construction job sites where we had to put on the Dickies, long sleeve shirts, and I mean, it was miserable. My guys couldn't stand it. We had to wear hard hats. We had to wear safety vests. We had to have wraparound eye protection out there because it was a Veterans National Cemetery that was being constructed. We were doing construction cleanup for them, and we had to literally adhere to every rule out there. It was miserable because this was like in August that we were doing this. I mean, I had guys just saying, and now it begs another question: water. You've got to actually have water for your guys on the trucks out there to keep them hydrated. Very important on there. So, but anyway, he said, this director, he said, you guys never do that. He said, and if we want to follow the letter of the law, yes, you should be in long pants. You should be in closed-toed shoes. You should be in the appropriate, and I laughed at him. I said, haha, but I don't pressure wash. I'm soft washing. And he said, oh, that's great. So you're wearing a full face shield over your wraparound glasses and a Tyvek suit? And I'm like, yeah, I see where you're going there. Again, there's no way for us to follow all of these rules. We just have to familiarize ourselves with it. We have to make our job sites look clean. We have to have an understanding of it. Sometimes we're going to be taking a calculated risk. I mean, this is just great. You're at a safety certification class and the instructor's going, all right, yeah, don't follow the regs. There's no way we can actually follow the regs. But sometimes we're going to have to take calculated risks on these things. And that's up for you as a business owner to figure out what you can tolerate. Yes, sir.
Well, they have a free app, OSHA Easy app, and from that you can follow, depends on the moderate risk, high risk,
Right.
what's required on the job site, but then from there you can go into any of the applications for rules for different jobs and safety.
That's a mobile app for OSHA?
That you put right on your phone.
That's nice. That would be very handy to have. The mobile OSHA app, get it. I would recommend that strongly. And again, the guy said, we want y'all to be safe, but we're not looking to jam you up. We're really not looking to jam you up. One of the best ways we can avoid, and I stated earlier, I hate working off ladders. One of the best ways we can do is honestly to work off ladders and not get on roofs. Because as we saw demonstrated earlier, fall protection is one of the biggest, baddest, most finable offenses out there. So if you can stay off a roof, stay off a roof. Here's some stuff, just some sources, OSHA.gov. That gentleman just said about the mobile app on there. Your workers' comp provider, if you have workers' comp, can really be a big source of good OSHA info because they work hand in hand with OSHA. have them do an OSHA inspection for you. They can help you. Our workers' comp guy comes out once a year and inspects the shop, inspects the trucks, and it's not a I'm trying to bust you type thing. It's a helpful guide of you ought to look at this and I would have this done over here. That reminds me. What's that? Yeah, loss, exactly. It's their loss control. Hopefully, if they make you work right, they won't have a workers' comp claim. We talked about electrical tape earlier. On electrical tape, if you've got it taped down by an entrance out there, pull the tape off whenever you're done. If you're taping your plug-in to an outlet for power and making that waterproof, whenever you're done, cut that tape off of there, because it's that kind of little thing right there that can make an inspector or somebody actually go, oh, he's using a bad cord. And you're not using a bad cord, but you've got this old tape remnants on there. So get those tape remnants off your thing. And I'm guilty of this too. I mean, my guys are guilty of it. I go up, there's like 3 different colors of duct tape on the thing where I know they haven't, taken this off in a couple of days. So you do that. OSHA Campus, OSHA Education Center, Safety Info, those .com, those are private companies that you can pay a fee to get some OSHA training on there. Safety Info is neat because you can get unlimited plans, safety and training plans for your employees. Regardless of OSHA regulations on this, something we need to be really concerned about as contractors: eyes, hearing, respirators. There's a lot of us guys out here, especially us flooring folk, that are cleaning tile roofs, that are spraying 50% SH on stuff, and we don't realize just how bad we are kicking our own butts. And in 10 years from now, I mean, we're going to be struggling to breathe, Those fumes they're no joke. They will lay you out, Yes, sir, Andy.
Chris Tucker's one of the
He's a great example,
One of the godfathers, and he lives here in Tampa, and I sent him a text, and I said, Chris, we're here. Everybody'd love to see you. He's the man, but he didn't protect himself, and now he says my lungs are too bad. I can't get out.
Yeah.
He's suffering.
He's a perfect example of it. As for those that aren't familiar, Chris Tucker had Apple Roof Cleaning and the RCIA. Man, he's helped just so many guys throughout the years, and you just gotta and us old guys with some of the grays on our head, we understand the limitations of our body a little bit more than you youngins that are 10 foot tall and bulletproof, and you're not. Just be careful. Yes, sir.
With the respirators, it's like I'm new to the industry, so I'm seeing a lot of respirators being worn because they're hard to max. And as far as OSHA goes, they see you having that on your mask, that's worse than having nothing on, because it's actually trapping all those vapors.
Yeah.
So you have to have the right.
Yeah, you have to have the right respirator. I mean, and that's something to think about. Respirators are classified. A dust mask is not getting rid of fumes for us. I mean, it needs to be a cartridge type respirator. We now have to have a log for keeping our respirators when we maintain our respirators. Respirators, if you're using a charcoal type filter respirator, it has to be kept in a sealed bag. If you leave that respirator out on a shelf or in the back seat of the truck, not covered up, the charcoal burns out and it's trash. Yes, sir.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but when you have facial hair and you have to be tested, you have that on file.
Technically, yeah. Technically, yeah, you do. Yes, sir. Right, the oxygen apparatus breathing. There's a guy who and I cannot think of his name, but he has the full face. Mark is here. Is he here at this event, or will he be here tomorrow? But it's great. He actually has a full face shield respirator. Really kind of cool. So it's getting eye protection and breathing protection at the same time.
But then the whole neighborhood runs away when they see you.
Yeah.
They think
the aliens is coming. Hearing. I mean, Carlos and Paul are two great examples of Carlos. You know, people say, God, Carlos is so rude. He didn't speak to me. No, Carlos didn't hear you. And Paul, you know, wears a hearing aid as well, and it's from being around these loud machines. Wear hearing protection. Wear it, because it's not one of these things that happens, you know, immediately. It's a slow loss over time. Eyes, you only got 2 of them, man, and you do not want to mess them up. I was the recipient. So much of the safety, and we're getting off the OSHA now. We're going to take a break for a few minutes and stretch. And we're going to get into the fun part of it. Not all of this is going to be like, God, Ray, I hate you for telling me everything I'm doing wrong. It's going to be a lot better here after we get done with the OSHA. But like I said, you have to address OSHA in any type of safety class. So much of what you're about to see, the bad problems or the things that I've written about, I've written because of experience by doing them the wrong way to start with. Experience is an awesome teacher. Yes, sir.
In this industry, do we have to do color-coded inspection programs, like with our extension cords, and have the color of the month and always be looking, you know, like when you go on to commercial job sites and the general contractor, lots of times their extension cords all have different colored.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know. Again, I mean, I could spend the rest of my life learning dang OSHA regulations on there, but not that I know of. I mean,
cords and that kind of.
And not that I know of. And we don't use a lot of extension cords. You know, we plug our booster pumps into you know, the customer's power, but luckily we're not real intensive on that. Safety first. I mean, there's my guys with the respirators. Somebody was telling me, you know, OSHA. You know, if you have even the particulate mask on, that is the charcoal filter, the one that has a little charcoal filter on there. You know, if it's a 2-stringer, they're now considering that a respirator. You know, so now technically you've got to have a respirator program for a freaking dust mask on there. You know, again, it's impossible for us to follow all the regulations, not actually be able to do this job in a timely manner and get paid. I mean, but you just got to be aware. You just got to be aware. Garages, guards, and gear. Just some random thoughts that I have on this. Pulley guards, belt guards on your pressure washers. How many of us have taken them off? To change out the belt, and then they kind of maybe didn't get put back on. Major finable offense. That's a serious violation by not putting those dang guards on there. They view that as a pinch point where an employee could get his hand in there, lose a limb, be injured on there. Those guards are there for a reason, and they have to be installed. If somebody walks up there and sees that, you know, open pulleys on a belt drive pressure washer, you are going to have a problem. Garages. We were doing a garage in September of this year. It sucked. It was a low clearance garage, and it was a shared garage, luxury townhouses, downtown Tallahassee, and then it shared the garage space with an office building. I'm in there with 3 Honda GX690s, and we are just blowing and going on this thing. And it's loud. We can't hear ourselves think, even with the hearing protection on. And by the end of the day, we were feeling just absolutely like crap. And I thought, just being in the garage, my guy calls me from the emergency room. Carbon monoxide poisoning. Carbon monoxide poisoning, and it is not a joke at all. Not a joke one bit. The fans had been turned off. There were 4 fans in this garage. Well, I'm sorry, 8 fans in this garage, because it's a split garage, but our portion had 4 of them. I failed to check them. I mean, I assumed that the fans would be operational. The second day I went back into that garage, and I went in armed with a carbon monoxide meter from Lowe's that I went and bought. I couldn't get a professional grade one, and it sat on the hood of my truck. And every time it started to spike up out there, we went and took a break for 30 minutes in the air. It is no joke. I mean, we all had headaches. We were nauseous. He actually had, you know, they rate, I think, from 1 to 30 in your bloodstream. Anything over, you know, 10 and under is fine. I believe it was like 1 to or 11 to 20 is a moderate. Anything over 20 is a serious case of carbon monoxide poisoning. And he was at a 21 or 22 from us. And I'm sure the rest of us were. The rest of us didn't go into the hospital. We just all felt like crap. And it's like, well, you know, you feel like we do. That explains what's wrong with us. Carbon monoxide can build up in your bloodstream as well. I gave him the day off the next day. But do not assume that your fans are going to be on. When I went in there the second day, those fans had been manually turned off. I failed to inspect them myself. Really kicked myself in the butt on that. Turned the fans back on, and I realized why they had the belts were squeaking like crazy. So they had turned it off to not offend the the residents of their garage. And we wound up giving up this account. And we told the property manager, this just is not worth it. We're out. We're done. This is our last cleaning for you. And you're going to this luxury condos. And I said, you've got every high-priced attorney and doctor living at this luxury condo downtown out there. Somebody's going to be like sitting in their car, on a business call with their windows down one day and start feeling like crap and put 2 and 2 together. And I can't imagine what your legal bill is going to be when they get done suing you. Because it's real easy for attorneys to sue people since they don't have to buy an attorney. We're going to talk about public safety when we get back. Here's where we're going to get into some fun, and we're actually going to talk about some practical applications. We're going to get off this OSHA junk and talk about ways to make you money. Let's take about a 10-minute break, okay?